Hi, so this is for my reflection, my second reflection, and again, I took notes, so I will be looking at the book a little bit. The first thing I highlighted in chapter 4 is where it says think of someone now, to think of somebody like that you would be having a dialogue with, that like you disagree with or whatever. I thought of my brother because we have completely different viewpoints, opinions on literally everything in life. So I think it definitely put the book way more into perspective. Once I read that, is, think of someone that I would be going all of this through with, and that's definitely my older brother. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to prepare for a successful dialogue. Step 1 is to prepare yourself. Anyone can call a meeting, but it takes effort and intentionality to make a meeting productive. I definitely think that is a good point. And to make it productive, I definitely think you need to write down what points you want to make so that you can stay on track and make sure that it's productive. And at the end of the meeting, you need to go through and be like, okay, so this is what we're going to do now. This is how we're going to tackle this, and make sure that everything is in order. The next thing, learn about the issue at stake. First, make sure you understand the issues at stake as well as possible. You don't want to be in the middle of your dialogue when you suddenly realize you don't know what you're talking about. Research all sides of your issues. I also think this is extremely important. Even the side that you don't agree with, you definitely should still research so that you can even pull in, make points about that side and how it can relate with your side, or, contradict in a way. And definitely I use this with my brother a lot. He is a huge Christian and he's completely against LGBTQ+. I am in the LGBTQ+, so we definitely butt heads a lot with that. And I am not religious at all in any aspect, but I have went on Google and found certain quotes from the Bible and whatnot that can contradict what he says. And it's not that I'm trying to argue with him, but I'm just trying to make a point of, that doesn't make sense because right here it says this. So I definitely think you should research all sides. Next, decide on your goal. I highlighted this entire paragraph because I think it all made a pretty good point. When the author, Justin, goes to these colleges, he makes a goal at the end, and that is to somewhat have the Christians and the LGBTQ peers come together, or at least understand each other in a way. And he had an end goal for all of these, and they all ended up reaching his end goal from what he says. Each of the colleges he goes to does have an end goal, and he's successfully reached all of these goals. Next, get to know your audience. Take some time to learn about them in advance. Do they have a blog, published writings, or even social media accounts where you can learn about their values? This is very true, and that's why I highlighted it, because if someone were to want to have a successful dialogue with me, they could easily go on my Facebook or Twitter and see the things I share, I retweet, I post. I definitely am very strongly opinionated, and I do put that on my social media accounts. And so if, you were to come to me and want to bring something to my attention, you could easily, go on my social media accounts and be like, okay, this is where she's standing on that. This is what I need to discuss with her. I think that you could even do that to try and see where they're coming from without having to ask them, and then, kind of correspond that into your discussion with somebody. Page 42, get ready emotionally. Make sure you're prepared for the worst, but hope for the best. This is extremely important and such a good point. When having a dialogue with someone, you do want to get prepared emotionally, because you could leave that conversation being completely heartbroken, upset, angry, or it could be great. I mean, it could be amazing, but you do need to prepare emotionally. Like he says, it's often unfair requiring you to be the bigger person, even if something is the other person's fault. You shouldn't have to feel like you need to be the bigger person. So you do need to go in there emotionally ready for what could be coming out of this conversation. Step 2, prepare your audience. Set the stage for a productive dialogue. I think that can be emotionally draining because that does take a lot of work. What did I highlight? They might think you want to argue with them or lecture them or spring something on them to make them look foolish. This worry might cause them to turn down your invitation or show up in the wrong frame of mind. So you need to get your point across to them of what you want to be ready to talk about. And I also think that runs with, where did it? I actually don't think I'm there yet. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry. Where was I at? This worry might cause them to turn down your invitation. So you do want to talk to them and let them know. Give them an idea of what this conversation is going to be about. It's important to set expectations right from the beginning. That's what I was just not looking for. But I thought it was on the previous page. It's on the next page. But yeah, like I said, you do want to let them know, give them a heads up, an idea of what it's going to be about, and be respectful about it, just so they are aware of what this conversation might lead to. Give them a reason to take the time. People may not want to have this dialogue with you, have this conversation with you, because it's uncomfortable. A lot of people aren't comfortable talking about religions, ideas, political parties, things like that. So you need to give them a reason to have this conversation. If you have a personal relationship with them, that could easily be the motive, because you want to keep that relationship, which is, I think, can go for a lot of people. Step 3, prepare the space. Find a relaxing environment. This is key because you both want to be comfortable. Both of the people having the dialogue, having the conversation, you want to be comfortable so that you can be open and honest and say what you want to say. You don't want to feel like you need to hold back what you want to say, because that could, lead to exploding and being upset and leaving this conversation, not wanting to ever speak to this person again when they thought the conversation went really well. It is important to have a safe environment to be in. Set ground rules, like being willing to listen to each other, avoid interrupting, and do your best to understand each other's perspective. I think this helps sets the tone and takes time to set rules, and that can show that you're respecting the other person. So when you're inviting this person to come do this dialogue with you, you're setting ground rules with them to be like, hey, I'm going to let you say your point. I'm not going to interrupt you. So when I say my point, please don't interrupt me, so that we can both get our points across and we can take the discussion from there. I think that shows a level of respect that you're willing to give them, and you're just asking for the same thing in return from them. So then chapter 5, 49, 50, and 51 talks about the 3 types of salespeople, which I thought was pretty interesting actually to put in the book, because it makes you look at it in a new perspective, kind of. And Justin talks about how he used to be a salesperson in a computer department, and they had 3 different types of salespeople that they would group together. And the first one was the passive salespeople, the passive salespeople, and they are the ones that kind of let the customers come and approach them, and what the customer asked for is what they got, which customers, he said, tend to get along with really well, because they're not saying any more, they're not saying any less. It's kind of just like, this is what you want, okay, let's go get this over with, and you're on your way, which is something my dad would probably lean towards. The next person is the aggressive salespeople, and a lot of times customers don't like dealing with them because they are aggressive. They want to, sell you more things. They kind of have a script that they go with, that they give for everyone, because it works. And, he says customers leave upset, they leave angry, they're not happy. And it's because these people are aggressive. And then the third one is, he just says they did one important thing that neither of the other groups did. They listened. They don't have a specific name like the other 2 did, and they listened to the customer. They wanted to know what the customer wanted, and they would offer new things that would accommodate the customer. So unlike the aggressive ones kind of had a script that they went with, and they followed for each customer because it tended to work. These ones pay attention and they listen to things that the customer needs or wants, or they may say something like, you said you just got a digital camera for Christmas. We have sale on a high quality photo paper and ink. So they listen to that. And that's not something that I would expect when going with a salesperson. I don't know if I just haven't experienced that, but that's just not something that I would expect them to do. So I think that shows With the salespeople, a lot of people tend to go towards the ones that listen. So that shows when having a dialogue with someone, that is a lot more common to happen, that if you listen to them, they're going to respect you more and they're going to want to talk to you and see where you're coming from. So then on 52, strategic listening is an information gathering process to help you find the most effective ways to research someone with a new idea or different perspective of the world. What do they want? What do they believe? What do they think you want? And what are the sources of the information? What language do they use? What are they worried about? And what do you have in common? These are all important in an argument because you're answering questions that I think in chapter 4, the end goal. This can go back to the end goal. You want to set up these points and they can relate back to your end goal. What do they want? Hopefully by the end of the conversation, you find out what they want. Always listen to them first before asking them to listen to you. Be inquisitive. Don't just sit quietly. Actively engage them with open-ended questions that encourage them to talk about themselves and their views. That shows that you are interested and you want to know more instead of just sitting there and saying, okay, yeah. Because when someone does that to me, I'm like, okay, let me shut up because they don't want to hear what I have to say. But when someone asks questions and they want to know more, I'm like, oh, okay, like they do want to listen to me. They want to know, about what I'm talking about. Be sensitive. I think this can be a little difficult because I definitely think, that may just be me. I have a hard time being sensitive to other people's feelings, which is kind of bad, but, it's important. And I really didn't realize it was important until I saw this, because you want to be able to have empathy and sympathy with these people when having a conversation with them and understanding where they're coming from. Be sincere. When you listen sincerely. Your number one goal at this point is to understand this person as well as you possibly can. So if you're not understanding what they're saying, you don't agree with them, you should still try to put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from. And then I highlighted the ego protection, which I have a little bit to say. Nobody wants to look foolish. Nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to feel manipulated. I think it is dumb that egos even exist, because there should be no ego protection barrier. I understand where people are coming from with that, but it's like, really? They're trying to protect their ego, but I don't really see a point in it. And that just may be me. I'm willing to break down that barrier if I have one and listen to somebody and hear them out, because I like, meeting new people and talking with people. So I think it's important that everybody does that. Ego protection is a kind of self-defense. He doesn't want to be humiliated. This will always be an issue, and it shouldn't be about humiliation. It definitely, I can see where it makes people flustered, but again, that's just me not really understanding the whole ego thing and why ego protection is a thing, because it's like, I don't know, that may just be me being more open to things, but I think everyone should be able to listen to the other person and admit that they're wrong, which, that's the whole point of an ego protection barrier, is that people don't want to listen and they don't want to be wrong, but that's just my viewpoint on it. The people we see as villains don't see themselves that way. They think everyone should follow them the way that, believe the things that they do, follow their lead, and they think it's okay. And again, that can go with anyone, because someone may see me as a villain. They may see my beliefs, my ideas, my things as villain-like because they disagree with them. But I think, people should believe and think what I think. And I see certain people as villains. That's kind of a strong word, but I can see what he's saying. See certain people as villains because they don't understand or look at the things that I do. But again, that goes with the ego protection barrier. I think the people that aren't willing to listen and express that they're in the wrong are the ones that can be considered the villains, because they don't want to be humiliated. So.